one of the things that I've been thinking about over the last few days as I've listened to the beautiful and powerful survivor leaders here is the huge disconnect between the stories we're hearing in this room and the way the world sees this issue. The degree to which commercial sexual exploitation is glamorized or sexualized or minimized or called
100%.
work like any other job. And one of the reasons I'm so grateful to the three women who are up here is they are creating work and have created work that actively challenges that narrative. That says when you encounter this story, you can't buy into that lie anymore. So hopefully you've checked out their bios on the app. They're each extraordinary. Rachel, Ruchira, and Hannah have done things that I can't wait for you to hear about. So I want them to really get a chance to both speak the work and share the work. And I thought one of the things we could start with, because you've each worked on very, very different literary projects, a young adult novel. I and Rachel, when I first read your book, thought it was this beautiful hybrid of personal history, philosophy, and policy, which is very hard to do all three of those things and make it super readable. And of course, memoir, Ruchira, young adult novel. Each of these books do something very unique. So if we start, I think, Rachel, with you, talking about the why behind your book, why you wrote it, and what you've seen it do in the world.
Is this on? Can you hear me, Anne?
Yes, ma'am.
And the why. That popped into my head yesterday, and when there was a conversation also going on about the why, and I kind of asked myself, well, what was your why? And the one word that came to me was witnessing. It was just about witnessing. And I think more than what we've lived in our own lives, it's also about witnessing the same thing and how that plays out in the lives of others. You know, not just in the women and girls that I saw around me, but the ripple effects across society of all of that. And that's come back again and again as I've involved myself in this movement, because I've seen those ripples everywhere.
Ruchira.
First of all, I just want to say I'm truly honored to be on this panel. This panel means more to me than all the other panels I've been for so far for this book. So thank you for having me in this room and witnessing the growth of a movement. When I began, I was just a journalist and I stumbled upon a village with missing girls, ended up making a documentary, won an Emmy way back in 1996 and decided to use the Emmy not to build a career in journalism, but to make a difference. And then as I went along, I started an NGO apne aap. Many of you know it, Rachel's visited. The why, about why do I continue to use storytelling? Why have I written this book, I Kick and I Fly, now after all these years? We've changed laws, we've created NGOs, we have a survivor movement, incredibly brave and courageous, is because I feel that we need to pass on the baton to the next generation and get to them before people who will sort of try to manipulate their minds and brainwash their minds into thinking there's something glorious or romantic about prostitution, and to recruit them into our movement. So I wrote I Kick and I Fly based on true stories from my NGO Apne Aap. And it's a story of a 14-year-old girl who escapes being sold into the sex trade by becoming a Kung Fu champ. It begins in India and ends in Queens in New York. And literally every single incident in the book is based on a story that I witnessed, experienced, or was told to me. It's about truth and hope.
Hello everyone, it's such an honor. I feel the same way. This is life-changing for me, and I have Anne to thank for that, and all of you. Thank you. and thank you both for your extraordinary books. I wrote script. I began writing my book shortly
Don't
after
come here with
I
that, Bruno.
exited the sex trade. And I wrote it to survive. I didn't realize that at the time. But I knew that I had to put one word down at a time. I just knew it. And I wasn't necessarily writing a book. In fact, I didn't want to write a book. The way my journey has taken me is I've met one extraordinary woman after another who has mentored me. And the book would not be written without all of those women. And the other thing is I kept hearing women that I also worked with talk about how empowering it was. Even at 19, I remember that. Sitting under, on a couch with a zebra blur, thing would be there. I never felt that way.
One of, when I first read all of these books, actually, and of course I know all of you personally now as well, one of the things I think we think about a lot when we're writing a book, and the world tends to say, what was your motivation? What is your story? And yet the beautiful thing about each of these projects is in the truest sense of the word, they're collective. And so often, the most powerful stories that exist around these issues, thank you, are shaped by our own experience, but heavily informed by the collective. So I want to ask you about that process, because I think it's part of the beauty of your books, but knowing a bit about each of your journeys, I think it's also probably one of the challenges, and perhaps one of the challenges for everyone in this room, that we carry our own narratives and our stories, but we take in the pain and narratives of those around us. And we do it as artists, but we also do it as advocates. So I think, Chair, maybe starting with you, because you've been taking in stories as a journalist from the beginning. How has that helped you, and how has that uniquely been a burden?
Rachel said something which resonated with me. She said that, we have to bear witness. And I think that's why I became a journalist. I grew up in a very poor city, Calcutta, which has Mother Teresa's home in it. There's a lot of inequality. And as a child, I was born in a family of wealth and privilege, but I could see all the poverty around me and I wanted to bear witness to it. I had used to read a lot of Charles Dickens, and I'm sort of inspired by him and Louisa May Alcott in my writing. And I knew that somehow, when Charles Dickens wrote about poverty among children, it did change the landscape in England, and people began to understand there's something called child labor, there's something called foster care. It created a movement. So I wanted to be that person, and that's why I joined journalism. Not realizing that as I bear witness, the stories will get to me. They'll get under my skin and into my heart. And that's what happened. And I had no outlet except writing or making a documentary or telling the story. But even that was not enough, because I realized that if I don't make a difference, it's all talk. Like the song in My Fair Lady, that don't talk to me about the sun and the moon and the stars, show me. So that's what happened, and the trauma does get to you. I deal with it through art and writing and creativity, as we've talked about so often. Channelizing it is a good way out.
I'm not sure where to start with that question, to be honest with you, Anne, and I think it's kind of, in part, probably because it's a bit early in the morning for me.
Right? It is early, honey. Girl, it took me everything to get up out of bed today. I was like, oh, I poked my head in here. I was like, I ain't ready. I gotta get
It's been 11
coffee.
years now since my memoir was first published in Europe, and it's gone through a few different translations since it came out here in 2015. And I've just met so many people, and I've seen so much, and I've been in so many places. It's come to the point now where what I see is patterns. I see that the same patterns play out everywhere. And, you know, the things that change from nation to nation and region to region, they're not nearly as significant as we think, because the pattern is the same. So whether we're talking about impoverished white girls in the Dublin I grew up in, where we were in a very, very class stratified time and place, everybody looked the same, so it might have been harder to see, but that was a division running straight through the middle of society. And then you go to different places, and the divisions might be more visually obvious, but they're still there. And
Right.
I see that pattern absolutely everywhere. And the only thing I've noticed that shifts is the nationality, the race, the class. But you're talking about deep divisions, the haves and the have-nots. You could put it as simply as that.
Right.
And even when you go to a place like I visited Ruchira, as you said, in Calcutta a couple of times now, I think the thing that surprised me most about your city was how beautiful it was. You know, because growing up in Europe, we'd heard, of course, of Mother Teresa, we'd heard about the poverty endemic to that part of the world, and when that's the narrative that you hear, and then you get there and you meet the most beautiful, gentle-natured, sweet, polite people everywhere you go, and also see that it's very, very beautiful. And I was struck, deeply struck, by the sense of sadness. Yeah, that I felt, because the inequality was so stark, you know, and so in your face. But I suppose that's what I'm saying, is that those patterns are everywhere, and that's what sticks with me. As to getting into how to create change, well, you know, we could be here until the moon came out talking about that. I won't go on too much longer because I realise I'm hogging the stage. I hope I made some kind of sense.
Speaking to bearing witness, I remember early on, before I put a word on a page, or was really conscious of anything, I remember being in environments when I was even just going to say the word working, so it's still a default. I'm ashamed to say that, and it's the truth. But I want to share that because part of bearing witness for me is when I was in it, I just had this sense that one day I was going to write about it. I just knew. I didn't know what that was going to look like. And one of the things that has happened is, even before the book came out, I was writing articles and essays and speaking on, you know, panels, small panels at recovery homes for women. Was the women sharing their stories with me and holding that. How do I hold that while also living my own life and moving forward and putting their hand into someone else's?
All right.
Right? I recently wrote an essay, and there were so many emails that came in. I wanted to just hug them all. Mm-hmm. But the capacity, right, so extending that hand, which is what Anne has done with me and all of you.
Thank you for that. I was thinking, when Hannah was talking about something, Hannah actually I run a testimonial writing program for survivors of gender-based violence and other human rights violations, and extraordinary Hannah is a graduate of our writing program. And one of the things that really struck me when you came to the program, and it's something that I've thought a lot about within our movement, is the beauty and the purity of your testimony and your capacity to speak and write from the heart, and how once we're in this extraordinary movement that we're in, I know often for me, I'm thinking theoretically, or I have movement speak racing through my head, or I want to challenge someone when they use the wrong term. All these things we do. And I've watched Hannah, through her writing and her speaking, go out into the world and just say, this is my truth. I'm going to express it as artfully and honestly as possible. And I've seen that create change, the authenticity of that. And I think one of the things I want to ask all three of you as artists, because I see you, in some cases, for example, Ruchira, I knew you as an activist before we realized we had this shared passion for literature. And so, as artists who are activists, how do you navigate around those moments when you want to wave the activist flag versus those moments when, as a young adult author or as a human being, you just want to speak your truth? And are those two different things? I mean, Ruchira, perhaps we can start with you.
For me, it's the same. I can't be anything else except be an activist artist.
Right.
So, even as a journalist, I would say for me, objective journalism is I object. That's what
Right.
I am. And along the way, I also discovered the power of collective storytelling. So, I now have a new term called radical collaboration.
I like that, radical.
The more we can augment and put pressure and change systems. And my writing is about telling people that you're not alone.
Right.
There are others out there, and so therefore collective storytelling is really important. Also, that we have to understand that we are not crazy. The system is crazy.
Right. Right. Big facts.
And that's again what stories can do. And even in my writing, I try to introduce the idea of collective action through telling the story of one person, but she's always surrounded by people who support her. In the book, in the movie, in the documentary, wherever I have. So I try to keep emphasizing the idea of community. And that there is nothing more powerful than a community coming together around something it cares about. And that's what I did also in I Kick and I Fly.
Well, for me, up to now, they've also been inseparable, those two things. That's not to say that I can't or don't intend to ever write anything else outside of that framework. I'm working on a piece of comedy fiction at the moment, actually, and I'm really enjoying it. And thankfully, it has absolutely nothing to do with prostitution whatsoever.
That's okay.
Because it's nice to finally, to reach a place in your life where you think, well, actually, I'd like to put my focus into something that just makes me laugh.
Right.
Because it was
Yes.
precious few laughs.
Yes.
But that's not entirely true, actually. There's been a lot of laughter in throughout this whole journey. I think mainly because we have to laugh.
Right.
We
have dark humor.
There's so many shared connections and understandings between myself and the rest of the women.
That's such inappropriate humor. It's not even funny.
That's very easy and natural. But also, like as everybody knows, it's a heavy, heavy subject. And when you spend years of your life discussing it and writing about it and thinking about it, you just get to the point where you need to shift your focus a little bit for your own sake.
Right.
That's where I'm at right now. But
Yep.
it doesn't mean to say that, those two things, being a writer and a campaigner, they were so deeply entwined in me. Like, I could never write about prostitution ever without just kind of clicking automatically into that campaigner mode. Because every time I talk about the sex trade, I shift into that position where, as we've said, we're bearing witness when we talk about this.
These questions and these, both of you are just taking that in. I never thought of myself as an activist. When I was invited here, I thought, someone must have canceled. Like, I really did. Until this moment, I'm like, who canceled? And a lot of that comes from growing up the way I did, and,
Right.
and the work or trade that I was in, is that still that feeling like I don't have a right to be here, but today I do know I do.
That's right. Woo-hoo!
As far as activism, I'm just learning about that. I am, even though I've been doing.
You've been doing it for a while, girl.
And one of the things is, this has been so important because my book's been out about a year and a half, and I've done a number of podcasts. I wish I could do them all over again. All of them.
We all got those interviews.
I'm more informed now, right? And I feel this sense of responsibility. And I also want to speak to the community. That is the single most important thing. I would not be where I am today. I would not be 14 years sober. I would not be. I would not be 14 years out of the sex trade without
Come on, girl.
every single one of you. And the community, I don't want to give it away, but I will. The end of the book is about community.
Right.
I enter a home with other women. So, just as you were saying,
She's cute. I talked to her yesterday. She's really
One of the
sweet.
things, I hope you will get all three of these books if you don't own them yet, but one of the really beautiful things that you see on this stage and you find in these books is that balance between truth and hope, and that reality that there are moments where our brokenness is our power.
That's right.
And it's funny because with each of you as human beings, and then with each of your books, I had moments where my heart just broke, and I had moments where I laughed out loud. And that, to me, is what keeps us in this movement.
Right.
But I do want to ask a question about this. I was struck in our writing program recently. We had a really extraordinary young woman who came through, who was thinking about how she wanted to not only share her story, but write a story speaking to the collective. And she said to me, and I'll never forget this, she said, outside of rooms like this or our writing program, I feel like all the world wants to hear is my sad story.
Yeah.
But then she also said, but sometimes in rooms like this, I feel like everybody's saying to me, you're not a victim, you're a survivor. You know, you're powerful, you're a force. There's not room for your brokenness now. And it gave me pause and got me thinking about how we create, and to question, how do we create spaces where we allow for our own and other human beings nuanced, complicated stories in a world that wants the hero narrative or the broken flower?
Keep making space for it.
Because you three in your books, it's so clear, your extraordinary life force and your strength, but you're not afraid of vulnerability. And somehow, I want to think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how do we offer that space to people who are very aware of what the world wants them to say, which is a damaging thing. I don't know who wants to start with that one.
I suppose I would always say that you start with the truth.
That's
and
right.
You stay with the truth and you can't go wrong. But there are two important points though to come up alongside of that, is that when you write a book, especially if you write it over a long period of time, and I don't know how long you both were writing your books. Mine took me 10 years, which is probably because I'm a terrible procrastinator.
Facts.
Everybody says, oh, well, it was so painful, it took me. Oh, yeah. I'm an awful procrastinator. But what happens when you spend a decade on a book is that it doesn't so much grow as that it evolves, because your thinking changes over
Right.
the course of the decade. But here's another thing, and I didn't know this at the point where my book was released, is that your thinking also continues to change after the book is set in
Right.
stone and it's in print. And years go by and you will have moved on, because you made a comment earlier, Hannah, that bounced this straight into my head. So I'm thinking you will absolutely move on in your thinking and
Yep.
you understand it, and even of your own text. Like when my book went into its French translation a few years ago, there was about 7 or 8 years in the difference at that time. And I actually wrote a new foreword, advising the readers to ignore these particular words, whether they found in this book or anywhere else, because I was so embarrassed some of the language I'd used. So I just wanted to say that we continue to evolve, and that's important to know that that's okay. In fact, it's healthy.
Yeah, it is. That was just, that was phenomenal. The vulnerability, that exactly. And I already feel that way, and it's only been out a year and a half. Just last night it was brought to my attention that one of the blurbs in there, I had this woman change the word work instead of trade. I mean, instead of sex trafficking, because I wasn't aware. I wasn't sex trafficked.
Yeah.
It was my choice.
Yeah, last
That
night.
I'm not. That sex trafficking is something else, right? And that I had the privilege, so to speak, that's what I felt, or still feel on some level, to make a choice. Which is a very strong word, privilege, but it was such a, and there still is this separation. In terms of what people want me to say, I just can't. I just can't. And it's my truth, and I do want to speak to that joy and that laughter. It is in the community and in the vulnerability of sharing the stories that I've laughed so much, because I've heard another woman say, oh yeah, girl, I was a bad prostitute. I never, I didn't get the money.
That's right, baby, go.
It's me, who does that? And it's like, I did.
Yep.
Like, or I did. And so, I'm losing my train of thought.
That's all right. It's okay. You're right where you're supposed to be.
I think I'll just answer with a little extract from my book, because I told the stories of people who were going through the trauma, and I was trying to bear witness. And sometimes you're a little bit scared that, are you being true? Are you exploiting in a different way? Are you, what on earth is going on? What is the power dynamic when you write someone else's story? And I tried to be as true as possible, so that resonated when both of you said, but I think I'll just read a little bit about my character to answer your question. So Hira is the name of the girl who's been expelled from school because she stole an egg. Everyone was hungry at home. And she's sitting at home, and her cousin, who's already being trafficked, wants her to go back to school. But Hira thinks there's no point. Her younger brother has just died from hunger and fever that he picked up. So she says to her cousin, What if everyone in Girls Bazaar, Chacha and Baba are right? Did Chotu die because of me? What if I did bring bad luck to the family? I voice my doubts aloud. This grabs Meeradi's attention. Since when did you begin to believe in the superstitious nonsense? I don't meet her eye, focusing instead on Jamila Bua as she fries the onion fritters for the lunchtime rush. A black crow drives a sparrow away from the garbage. It's a stark reminder that the mightiest will survive, that destiny will decide who will be mighty. It's the way of the world, Meeradi. If destiny hasn't decided where I was born, who has? It's all a birth lottery, I say bitterly, walking up and down inside the small hut, small space of our shack. Meeradi comes and hugs me. I know you feel frustrated, but do you have a choice? What else can you do? I steer the conversation away from destiny. In my heart, I know that I don't believe the superstition. All the women in our lane believe in the eternal, inescapable fate of our nomadic nut tribe because they can't imagine anything beyond it. There was no defined mother or cousin or sister to fight for them. I decide to spell out my other fear. What if I don't understand anything? Meeradi looks at me with no expression on her face. As far as I remember, you did fine in school. I smile back. I used to love the dusty library, the smell of books, and the stories I read in the privacy of the desk between the shelves by the window. Then came the hunger, the bullying, the chores at home, my first menstruation. Everything slipped away. I look at Meeradi and remember her full-throated and happy laugh as a girl. I resolve to rekindle the laughter, light, and hope in her eyes. I will overcome my fears for her. I will fight for my future, for the dreams that she could never make come true for herself. Outside, a train whistle blows. I give Meeradi's hand a squeeze. I promise I will try to go back to school. I want to anyway. I will meet Jeannie D, that women's rights leader who says she will get me back to school. Meeradi gets up to go. She can't stay too long in case Chacha or Shaukat start looking for her as soon as a new client appears. I will send word to Rini that you will go to her tomorrow, she says as she ties a scarf around her head. Her body language changes. She stiffens, drawing in her shoulders as she walks away. Selfishly, perhaps, I realize that I'm not just doing this for her. I want to be a person. I want to kick and fly. I want to win. I want to have the courage, like Rini D, to demand a life without fear.
I love that part in the book, and I love the way I gave the book to my niece, who's in the audience for it. And one of the fantastic things is I think it's one of the first times she really understood what I do. So I told her what I do, but she read that book, and it changed her perception of what I do. So thank you for that. I want to ask one more question. I don't know where we are on time. Perfect, okay. And I want to talk about the process of writing and how we discover ourselves in it. You had a writer in our program recently. Women come into this program with different ideologies. So we will have someone in the workshop who proudly identifies as a sex worker alongside an Elisa Bernard or a Benita Carter. And we had someone in our workshop once who came in and was very clear from the beginning that for her, she was proud of this work, that she wanted to make sure people understood it to be work, and that she was in the room to write about that in her own story. And we had a writing exercise inspired by Reverend King's wonderful open letter from a Birmingham jail, where we asked our writers to write to someone who either helped or hurt them. And she went to write what she thought was a letter to her mom about how what her choice was okay. And as she read it aloud, she started to cry. And she suddenly looked up and said, I don't think until I wrote these words, I knew how bad this was. And I will never forget that moment because all of my rationality would not have brought her to the moment that her own story and lived experience did. And I saw her changed. I saw the words make it real for her. And I saw her change by her writing of her story. So the question I want to ask each of you is, how did writing your book change you?
In every way. Also was a 10-year process. I couldn't have written it any sooner because I was recovering as I wrote it. And what was the question? Oh, yeah, how did it change me in every way? Every way, and I don't even know where to begin with that. It's such a huge question, but people often ask, was it empowering? It was the very process. I was in recovery, I was in therapy, I was putting one foot in front of another.
That's right.
Getting out of a trade that I had been in, and I was now stocking dog food. How do you go
Yep.
from this
Yep.
to stocking dog food?
Facts.
Scared that my rent wasn't
Yep.
going to be paid because it wasn't,
Yep.
there was zero in the bank, right? And at the same time, I'm not using, I'm not drinking. I don't want to get out of bed. I do not want to get out of bed. I don't want to do any of this, and it's not going to be okay.
Right.
One word, one dog food can at a time, I began to change. And it was slow, a very slow process. And I held on. And all I knew was I didn't want to go back. I just didn't want to go back.
That's right.
And with this, that it changed me in such a slow way that there are parts of the book that I went back to towards the end because I wasn't able to tolerate what I was writing about. I remember coming to my mentor's space on a Sunday after we had some salmon, and she's 80 years old. She just tells it like it is, and I love that. And she said, "You're missing something here." And I just looked at her. I couldn't believe that she knew that. And she's like, "Go home and write it." And I was just like, "How do you know?" And that's in room, I think in the book, 111, so you'll find out. But she knew. And that changed me to go back in and write it and also take care of myself. It took all of those years of therapy to take care of myself to go back into that scene and write it.
For me, it just helped me process a lot of things that I had witnessed or experienced. So putting it into words, creating a coherent narrative around it, made me realize how much I'd seen and how much I'd forgotten, and then I had to draw details. And also it made me understand that there's hope.
Yes.
Because as I was writing, I realized, oh, we did succeed here. And this did happen, and we overcame this huge, daunting criminal gang. And we didn't know when we were challenging it that we were challenging something so big. So for me, writing was a process of healing, articulation, and now traveling with the book is also another story in itself.
I could talk a long time about that, and you know, what did it do? I suppose just so many things, like Hannah said, it changed so many things in my life. From the very beginning, when I first showed the book to a professional publishing industry, he told me, this is two different books, you're going to need to separate these because you've got your memoir and you've got your politics and the two don't go together. And I was thinking, well, okay, I know what that means. It means I'm entitled to live this experience, but I'm not entitled to have an opinion about it. And that's
Right.
where we've got a problem here.
Yeah,
So,
facts.
so from the very, I guess I felt challenged and confronted
Right.
and pushed back a lot.
I
So
lived it, but I ain't got, can't have an
strong,
opinion.
forced me to bring out my resilience. But I hope you won't mind if I just bounce away from that for one moment, because there's something really important that I feel I have to say. This is one of the best conferences I've been at, by the way, and I've been at more than I can count, and really enjoyed it. Such a great job. So thank you so much to all of the World Week team. But there's something missing from this conference, as there has been something missing from every conference I've ever been at, and it's the one thing I want to address. Because there's a woman here today who also wants to address it. And it is that there is no space made anywhere in our movement for the voices of the families, right? Now, and I'll tell you this is kind of personal, but I'll get it out of the way quickly. When we were first trying to press for the legislation in the Republic of Ireland, where I'm from, I said to the women who were working alongside me, what about our kids? They were all late teens in age. And I said, we should really give our kids the opportunity to speak to the legislators. It was closed private session, it wasn't public. I was shouted down on that because the feeling was that we would be like exploiting our kids. And I was saying they have the right to that option, they have the right to raise their own voice. Anyway, the long story short is, throughout all of these years in this movement, I've seen the same thing, which is that there is no space made for the families. Now, I saw the devastation in my son's life when he found out in his late teens what had happened to his mother. I think it would be a very diminishing phrase to use to call it like a secondary trauma. There was nothing secondary about this. This was deep and immediate for him. So I know that the mothers of children who are prostituted, the siblings, the children of those, like, there's a whole cluster of pain going on around every individual life that lives the sex trade, because that pain is so intense. And there's nothing more painful on this earth, by the way, that I've experienced than watching pain in the lives of someone that I love. So anyway, I mean, that just explains why this is such, it's its own independent trauma, and we're not addressing it.
I agree.
So, Joyce, would
100%.
you please stand up for a moment and identify yourself? My good friend Joyce Muchin is here today with the intention of gathering together anybody who'd like to take this conversation forward with her and help carve out the space for the families within our movement. So, you can all see her, there she is with the cute red hair up on her top. Maybe you can meet outside the lobby or whatever. But this is so,
I agree, though.
important, and
I agree
would love
100%.
to give her a hand putting this together.
We're gonna move to Q&A, but if I could just share one more thing about the power of story. And I wanna address it to someone very dear to me in this audience. I came into this movement because I was working on a book about sexual violence and interviewing survivors across the globe. And one of the people I interviewed was my dear friend, Brenda Meyer-Paul. And this was the first time in my own journey that I started to really understand the connections between sexual violence and exploitation, and that exploitation is sexual violence. And Brenda was my teacher. And a few years after, and this was 20 years ago, to be clear, and a few years after my interactions with Brenda, we launched our writing program and started to do writing workshops with persons from this community. I know many of you are out there, and through that, a few years later, a group of us started to have the conversations that collectively led to World Without Exploitation. And all of that started with a story. It started with Brenda's story, and her giving me the gift of her story. So we all have that. We have our own narratives. We have things to say, and we have things to bear witness to. So I hope you'll leave today with stories, that you'll share your own, the ones you've heard on the stage, because that is collective power, as the chair said so beautifully. So with that, we have a little time for questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
We cannot have rendered you silent.
Okay, I won't get it.
Hannah, we've been together on panels before, but I see the butterfly in you, okay? And I'm just so amazed to see it. Thank you. Miss Rachel, honey, you something else.
Yeah, I like her. She's spunky.
We need something else in this movie. Shari, you three women are amazing. And y'all just have been telling it like it is.
I didn't, don't worry.
The value of your story, and you didn't come, this is what I've been looking at in this whole movement. And I feel like I'm on the back porch of Genesis House when I first got saved, and women were coming from the suburbs with little cute pots and stuff. I don't know what they was doing, you know. White women. With the expensive pots and we could pawn them. Anyway, I'm talking about.
She's a hot mess, but I know exactly what the fuck she's talking about. I promise you. You'd be like, baby, what you doing with that?
And finding out that we went through the same stuff.
That's right.
And this is what I found out in this conference.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? It ain't what we did, it's the trauma that we had.
That's right.
Came along as women.
That's right.
And how doggish we've been treated through our lives. You know what I'm saying? It's those connections. And I'm not going to leave men out. You've had your trauma as well.
Right.
But you have entitlements more than we do.
Right.
And women are looked at as second citizens. So I don't like that. But thank you, sisters, for doing what you did. And keep on doing what you do. Thank you.
Hey, beautiful ladies. First of all, Hannah, I want to say to you, it was awesome talking to you last night. And I just want you to say, girlfriend, you hold more space in here and you hold all of us with you than you will ever understand. You've got a bunch of sisters and we a little crazy sometimes. But this is a family you can never get rid of, even when you want to sometimes. Also, I want to say to you, thank you so much for bringing the family thing up. I think all too often, I have 10 kids. And all too often, the trauma that they went through, being our children, is put sidestep sometimes, you know, unless you're with a mother that gets it, right? Like, I get it. I know that sometimes there was some trauma that, yeah, unfortunately, because of what I've been through, my kids have to carry that, right? And I've always wondered, like, where's the space for that? Because we're mothers, right? Like, and some of us have kids, and we need to deal with that, right? We need to learn how to deal with that. And so I would like to see that also in some conferences, because I think if we're going to break true generational courses, we have to heal the trauma that this horrible bullshit has done to all of us. And that includes our babies. So, thank you.
I'm so grateful that you brought that up. It's something that I know, but it didn't connect on some level. And so that's why we do what we do every day.
That's right.
Because we get to hear really important nuggets, and you can be sure the next time we do this, that will be part of the conversation.
There you go. Yes. Thank you, Wee. Thank you, Wee. Yeah, it should be. It's a very part.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be amongst you and listen to you. I have remembered in my beginning of my journey coming to your trainings and conferences, and now I get to sit in this room. I would say a good entering point for that, because we do that at sanctuaries, at families, with the Empower Center and the JET program. We all became facilitators for Ending the Game. And then afterwards, we give a caregiver workshop. And we also work with non-res and children's and family programs within our agencies to build those relationships with their children. But we also saw that when we were educating our youth, that we had to help their caregivers understand that the silence, shaming, and shunning was pushing them back into the street.
That's
So
right.
That's why we created those programs.
That's right.
So I invite all of you, let's do a collaboration, and let's just get this going. Thank you.
Salute, 100%.
Actually, we don't need to wait for another conference. We do webinars. Let's make this happen. We can have a live conversation, but you will see in the next 2 months, there will be a webinar.
Let's go.
Panelists, thank you so much.
And this is what planting seeds look like, by the way, because I believe that was mentioned sometime in this conference. She planted a seed, it's going to be harvest. Just saying. And that ain't even a religious thing, that's just a life thing. I'll make sure I clarify that too.
Hi, I just want to thank you also for, bringing up families. It's something that's been on my mind for a long time. My name's Tony, sorry. I'm a survivor also, and I'm also a licensed counselor, so I counsel families whose children have gone through this, and it's very difficult for them. But it's really hit home for me recently, because although I've tried to be the best parent that I can with the resources and the knowledge that I had before I got the healing process in my life, some of my kids did well and some of them didn't. And my daughter was exploited also, and she didn't make it. It'll be 2 years in a couple of weeks that she passed away. Her birthday is Monday. She would have been 25. So this is, I know a lot of us as parents who have gone through this, trying to raise our kids, and, I don't know how to explain it all because I'm feeling really emotional right now, but I think this is a really huge topic that we need to take forward and discuss and talk about and offer support and help in raising our children as we're struggling through our own trauma in our life, and just trying to put one foot in front of the other. And then most of us, if not all of us who are survivors, are doing this work also at the same time, trying to help other young women or young men who are coming out of this lifestyle, or not lifestyle, I'm sorry, I'm not thinking right, but being exploited and trafficked. It's tough, and it's a lot for us because we're so passionate about this. Right. And I really, really thank you for bringing that up. I've never heard it brought up at a conference before, and if anyone, I would love to be included in anything that helps other women and starting to get this together, and helping our children, because our children should not be. You think as a mother who's gone through this that you can prevent your own child from going through this, and you don't always get that choice. Because these people, they're just so good at what they do. The traffickers are so freaking good at what they do. And I never want to have to see anyone have a child pass away due to this kind of stuff. So anyway, sorry for falling apart, but I just felt now like we need the support, and I just really appreciate that you brought this up, so thank you.
Does anybody really want to follow that? Very powerful. Serena, I don't know how much time we have, but unless somebody feels that they have a burning question or something that they need to say, I think we should take a little bit of time and stretch and get coffee or do what you need to do. We're going to come back together. What time is it? No, I'm going to give you the mic. We're going to go to the next panel, but I want to give people a little bit of time. And
Cigarette break, Lauren, cigarette break.
Good to meet you. We're leaving. Oh, you're leaving? Are you on social media? I wrote your name. Are you on Instagram? Yeah. Or here, hold on. And Facebook. I'm on Facebook. Okay.
We're gonna see you on that webinar that's going to happen.
Exactly. 'Cause I'm definitely going to be on that. I think it's something that we forget about sometimes. You know what I mean?
I hate the way Facebook is now. You know, like
I know,
when I
it's
put your
so
name in, it's like it's so stupid, this whole AI thing.
I know. I think there's a way you can disable that, by the way. I heard people talking about it. I haven't figured it out
I
yet.
don't like it.
It's
Like here, I'm
stupid.
trying to put in.
You take those settings, EICKERS.
Let's see if it'll come up. It's so weird now.
I just FYI, I do ring girl stuff too for boxing. So you don't get too shocked when you go on my page. I do ring girl stuff for boxing.
I don't even know what that is.
It's where you hold the cards up when people fight.
Ring girl. Okay,
Fun
gotcha.
shit.
Yeah.
Silly shit. I always get people, I'm like, just so you know, like,
All right,
don't
I'm
freak out.
sorry, I can't get a signal in here,
That's fine.
but I'll connect with you.
And then I'll get you to my other stuff.
Yes, okay, awesome.
Nice meeting you, girl. You too, beautiful.
I just wanted to give you a hard time. And it's been so difficult to forgive myself
Yeah, I get it.
for the things that I went through. Even though I'm in a better place, and my kids are doing well, I still apologize. You know, my son said, Mom, look at what you're doing in your life. You have to apologize. But it's something that we forget that takes forever to forgive ourselves for. Because I remember when I was small,
100%.
I would have died for them, but I didn't know how to live for them.
100%.
You know, so, yeah.
I just want to give her a hug.
I know.
I just want to give you a hug. Yeah. From one mama to the other. And every mom felt it right here. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's important that we remember that aspect.
Oh my gosh, how much impact that communities, how do you see children go through that, like in your families, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. And then when I've talked to my kids about it, it's a lot. So, you know what I mean? I think if we can get that part, that's an important part of healing.
It is.
So,
It is. And I love what you said about generational curses, like breaking that, right?
well,
You
we
don't
have
want
to.
this to go
Yeah,
on.
we don't,
Like,
you know, because
totally.
shit happens.
Yeah.
And like she said, they're good at what they do. I'll be right back. I need a cigarette. Hi, beautiful. I love your whole vibe. You look so cute. I've met you before, haven't I? In New York. We were at yes, that's right, Summer. We were at the protest for, I think they were trying to legalize prostitution or some shit went on.
I think it's like a few years back.
Yeah, it's been a little while. It was like pre-pandemic. Kentucky. Yeah. I try to get involved anywhere I can just because the bigger picture in Kentucky is kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So we were doing really good and then we're not no more. So it just seems like everything's backtracked. All the resources are, a lot of corruption. It is. Especially when you're like feeling good because you're like, holy shit, we did this, we did that, we did it. My shelter's closed, drop-in centers are closed. They just don't want to find it. It's not the government, it's everybody in the household, it's like they just don't want it. I mean, we have a couple survivor leaders out of Kentucky. You know, we did have shelters and different things like that. But it's just everybody gets tired. not everybody, as you know, this is a hard fight. Not everybody's like really understands the big picture. So they get tired. The cops are a big problem with trafficking. They have trafficked women, and so when I push up against them, they push back, and you know how that one goes.
Yeah.
So, but I don't back down. But not everybody else, is really built for that. It's like I'm not taking the police on Summer, and I'm like, well, I'm going to. So let's go. I mean, I just testified against my host SK because they moved one of the detectives sexually harassed one of our survivors under anti-trafficking people, activists or whatever. And then they told me to keep it in house and break by 3 hours because I was trafficked. I was like, oh, you fucked up. So we actually won the case, which was amazing in itself because there hasn't been a whistleblower case in a long time. But we had one detective, he stood up for us, and he was like, listen, what you guys are doing is not right. And you can't tell activists that have been trafficked, like, keep it in house. And especially a woman that's been raped by the police, what did you think was going to happen? I took it all the way to the top.
Hell yeah.
I ain't scared. I ain't scared. I'll see you in a bit. What's up, everybody? It's a lot, y'all. Good morning, gorgeous ladies. Hi, beautiful. She's my neighbor. I didn't even know it until last night. How you doing, honey? Doing good. I had to take a woosah break for a second. Yeah. Maybe getting a little too. Huh?
You guys just let out?
Yeah, for a break because we had which was good. They brought up kids and stuff like that.
She smelled good.
Chilling.
That was on there. I don't remember their name. There was
Indian?
Yeah, Indian lady, a white lady, and 2 white ladies. So Hannah and somebody, I don't know. Somebody had brought up the healing aspect of our kids. What happened? Where we have space for them too in these conferences so we can learn how to do that. And I thought that was really good. Yep. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
They have it, it's 10:36 on, they have it.
Why am I doing this? It's a break. It's a break, girl. You imagine being a meeting.
I'll be honest with you, you doing better than me. I couldn't even get my app to work. I couldn't. It wouldn't tell me anything. I got to check in, and that was it. After that, I gave up. I was like, I'll just wing it. I'm gonna go smoke. Look, I'm like, please donate. I want this shirt. What's up, y'all?
I'm gonna go find my missing coffee. I'm so glad you got it.
What's up, everybody? All right, I'm gonna be leaving here in a little bit. I gotta go to the airport at noon. Oh man, this shit is heavy, dude. I'm ready to go home and just lay on my bed and not think for nothing. I love these kind of conferences when I can process everything. I'll kind of, I don't know, let you guys know how I feel. But it's amazing. First of all, let's go there. And I got this shirt. Everything's expensive in DC. I will say that. It's expensive as fuck. But this shirt says, "You don't owe me." And then there's another one that says "Power to Survivors." I really want that shirt, but they're $30, man. I'm like, fuck, why is everything so expensive? Hey, Mama, can you see the labs and stuff like that on that website? There was a video played yesterday, you guys, when we went to DC. So there was a video, it was Mothers of the Movement. I'm an OG, I guess, apparently. And so all the work that a lot of us put in before now, because even in just the last 10 years, we've put a lot of work in. There was a lot of conversations that didn't happen. There were a lot of things that we didn't know that, thank you, Seeger's. Oh, Seeger's Mom's Rocks, I love you, yay! I want that shirt so bad. I couldn't decide, because I was like, you don't owe me. Yeah, that's the bomb. But then the Power to Survivors, I was like, oh. So thank you so much. So what was I saying? So anyway, there's this video and it's called The Mothers of the Movement.
And it has all the work that we, like a lot of us have done, which has been the legislation that's in place now. We stopped so many things, like they tried to legalize prostitution in New York. I was a part of that. We stopped that. Just all kinds of different things. And so this film had like little clips of us, all the things that we've done in it. And so I really want to get that video, dude. I cried my fucking eyes out because there's women that are. We got a lot of work we're going to nationally and nationally. So that's really cool. That's what's cool about this specific conference. It's not just like people in the United States. It's people that are all over. And so then we have and stuff like that. We have opportunities to help and work on legislation. We have opportunities to do a whole lot of pretty cool shit. So as much as I love doing all my work locally, I love what we're doing my work locally, and that will never stop. But I wanted to get on a national level because in some situations the work starts at home, but in other situations you have to knock some shit out nationally to make things easier for home, if that makes sense. That was sexy. So we got big plans. I'm excited. Fuck. I know that's sexy. My bad, y'all. I just don't like shit in my mouth. You don't see any? Okay. Well, I'm sure I know they're going to be putting stuff together, so it'll be somewhere. Because they had a whole video crew and everything. Good morning, just.
How are you?
I'm good.
I like the t-shirt.
Thank you.
For one, but I think by the time I went out, all I saw was a larger one. So.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna try to get the Power to Survivor one. I like that one too. Hopefully I have a medium. It says some women get lost in the fire and some women are built from it. That's right. That represents all of us. I seen it and I seen the quote and I was like, ooh, I like that. I was like, I definitely can resonate with that. So I was like, I want to put it on my neck.
I want to put it back here. I want to get a few more.
Hey, I'm all listen. Therapy, sweetie.
I got.
That's pretty. I like it. It's therapy for me. I'm getting my fingers twitched. I'll be back. Hi, beautiful. What time? You're flying home with me today?
8 o'clock tonight.
Oh, you're going home at 8?
Yeah.
Oh.
I have to get out of here at 5. You know, because it's Friday. There'll be a lot of traffic.
Oh yeah. I leave at noon. I gotta go hit mine. My plane leaves at 3.
Oh, it does?
Mm-hmm.
Or
something like that. 4. Something like that. That was good, right?
That was real good. I love what you said. So real. That was the panel of the day, right?
Yeah,
there.
that was the most powerful. I love
that was
that was beautiful. And Hannah.
Besides our panel yesterday.
Yes, sir. But yeah, well, and that's why I wanted there because I wanted people to hear because a lot of people don't understand the black and brown aspect of the struggle, especially in this movement. It really any kind of sexual
it's
assault.
Getting better though.
It is getting
much
better. We're getting a lot more representative than we did 10 years ago.
It's better here, but in Louisville, so fucked up. And the trauma.
Yeah.
We are still reeling from the trauma. We can't see straight for the trauma. And we have no political will.
Well, that's why I said I want to start getting involved nationally.
Well, I was talking to Bender. She said, I was in, in Washington, DOJ, and, Kentucky is crazy. Catholic Charities is pro-sex work. She said, this woman, oh, you're talking about Marissa.
Yep.
She said, she is pro-sex work. But she couldn't believe it. I said, I'm telling you how fucked up.
For a second, and then I'll be right back. I gotta use the little girls' room and all that. I think I'm gonna do one more session and then.
Summer, I love Summer.
Hello.
Dixon?
Yep.
You almost sound like my. Alright, so I was at the shelter. Like I lived on street except I'm a survivor.
Yeah.
I started off at the little part, worked my way up. The owner passed away in November of, it was Halloween, November 2021, and they made me the executive director. And